today's gospel, there's a really encouraging, comforting line when Jesus said, "You did not choose me, but I chose you." Any of you ever have that experience in public school? Apparently, a number of schools have discontinued uh, this this custom of teams being picked, and the kids are all lined up, and there's two team captains, and they pick. And any of you ever have the experience of being the last kid picked? Sometimes you're early on in the pack, and sometimes you're the bottom end of the pack for different events. Um, Horrible experience being the last kid picked. I had that experience. I think many of us have probably had that experience, or the second to last kid picked, and horrible experience. Jesus doesn't neglect you. Jesus chose you, the whole of who you are. And so any of those times that you think you don't measure up, or you're not worthy, or you're not good enough somehow, well, Jesus tends to disagree. Jesus chose you to be on his team, to be a follower of his. And I'm so thrilled, of course, that all of you said yes to following Jesus, that we have the choice to say yes to that invitation, that we will follow Jesus. We'll uh, seek in our lives to do the best we can at putting his way of life and his way of living, his way of treating other people into practice in our own lives. And there's a paradox to following Jesus. And the paradox is that, as St. John in the epistle highlighted, how his commandments are not burdensome. Well, how many people seem to think that Christianity is actually about a burdensome list of do's and don'ts and thou shalts and thou shalt nots? And St. John reminds us, no, his commandments are not a burdensome thing. And why are they not burdensome? Because Jesus's commandment is the way we live the most fulfilled, most human life. His commandment is, in many ways, it's an easy thing. It is a freeing thing. It is a life-giving thing. And his commandment to us is simple. Love one another as I have loved you. I think one of the key words in that sentence is as. So the same love, in the same way that Jesus has extended to every one of us, is the love that he wants us to carry out into the world with the people we meet. The same compassion, the same empathy, the same radical hospitality, the same way that Jesus has loved each of us. We are to take that love out into the world and the people we meet, the lives of the people around us. Now, with some people, that is a amazingly easy and simple thing. Some people are very, very easy to love. But what do we do about those other people? Those people who kind of get under our skin, the people that we just don't find so easy to love. And there's all sorts of those people around in our world today, certainly, people who are not necessarily the easiest to love. I always, with those folks, try to remember three different things. For me, key things to remember. First of all, it's an unfortunate thing that in the English language we only have one word for love. In other languages, like, say, Greek, New Testament Greek, there are several words for love. In English, we only have one. And so we seem to think that love, when we say about love your enemies and loving those people who are difficult to love, in our minds, we seem to always think of just love as some sort of a warm feeling or some kind of warm, fuzzy feeling or something like that. It's not. Keep in mind that love is a very different thing from like. As a parishioner a number of years ago said to me in a different parish, and they had one of their adult children was particularly challenging in all sorts of ways. And as she used to say to me on occasion, we may love our children, Bradley, but we don't always like our children. And like and love are two very different things. And remember with that too, that hate and anger are not the opposite of love. Apathy is the opposite of love. Apathy, not hate. So remember, with those difficult people, love and like are not the same thing. And maybe with some of those people, it's enough for us to, I think of that, I can't remember if it's the Medical Association, that motto about do no harm. And maybe with some of those folks, maybe that's enough. Just that's the most that we can muster in terms of our love for some people is do no harm. That we wish them no ill. We will still extend compassion and empathy and all of those things, even if it's someone that we don't necessarily like, but we can still love them in a Christian way. Second thing I try to recall or keep in my mind with difficult people is that other old saying about how even a broken clock is still right twice a day. And that helps me to keep open and not write people off. You know how sometimes we can, when we get upset with people or, just people that we don't like, don't approve of, then we can tend to sort of write them off lock, stock, and barrel. And a broken clock is still right twice a day so that we can stay open to that person may still have the odd good idea, good contributions to conversation, so that we don't write people off. And the third thing I remember or keep in my mind with people who are difficult to love is that am I not also on occasion in my life difficult to love? Is it not true for every single one of us? Is it not true for every single one of us that there are times in our lives when we've gotten off track, when we've strayed from the course, when we have not lived our most noble selves? And how did Jesus respond to us then? Well, how did Jesus respond to the disciples when they abandoned him, ran away, went into hiding? And then it comes back to them after the resurrection. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago, he doesn't scold them, he doesn't chastise them, he doesn't say, you miserable, no good for nothings, none of that. He still calls them into joining him in his work. He hands the mission and the work over to those people. So that those times in my life when I've gotten off course, I've strayed, when I'm not living my most noble self, pardon me, then how has Jesus been with me? And that is the model that I must then put into practice and extend to other people. And so the important thing is that we keep striving, we keep chasing after the goal, especially with those difficult people, the people who we just find not the easiest to get along with, not the easiest to love. And I'm convinced that folks like that, it's usually, I can't in my brain think of a single exception to this, when that is not related to some sort of deep hurt and a lot of scarring inside of those people who are difficult to love. And we have to, I'm sure that a lot of those folks, difficult people, probably don't have too many positive receptions in their lives from other people. Maybe we can be a beacon of light, voice of compassion. And this, it seems to me, is how we bear fruit that will last. We don't bear fruit that will last by frightening people, terrorizing people, berating people, chastising people, scolding people. That's not a fruit that will last. That's a fruit that's going to spoil and sour. Fruit that will last is always rooted in love. And so, similar to some of the texts we had through Lent, this is one of those readings that I think we could spend a lifetime contemplating and still not necessarily get it right entirely. But the Christian journey is about constantly striving, constantly seeking, constantly in a pilgrimage, day by day, to grow more and more into Christ's nature, to empty more and more of ourselves out so that Jesus can fill us and more and more, so that we love one another just as he loved us. It is a freeing thing, it's a joyful thing, and it's how we bear fruit that will last. I hope you have a great week.